about specific solutions because, you know, we all know.
Welcome everybody. My name is Jack Carroll. Suzanne Flynn and I are the housemasters here at Maseeh Hall, which is the newest and largest undergraduate dorm at MIT. This was a construction site last year. So, louder? Is that better?
Yes,
okay.
Much better.
Welcome. We're very pleased to have you here. This has been a year of firsts for us, and this is the first event that's taking place in this lobby, which we think is a pretty nice space, and we're very pleased that you're here. If anybody has any other events that you'd like to put on here, just see me. We'd be happy to accommodate you. I wanted to introduce our first visiting scholar, who is also the host of this event, and that's Eli Kintish. And Eli has organized the event and is going to do the introductions from here. So thank you all for coming, and Eli.
Thank you all for coming. Just a very quick word about how this project came about. I'm a journalist with Science Magazine. I'm on a one-year fellowship here at MIT as part of the Knight Science Journalism Fellowships. And I happen to be the resident scholar here at Maseeh Hall. I have felt that as a journalist who covers climate change, the readers of my stories tend to be those who already get the gist when it comes to climate, and get the gist about the risk and about our need to do something about climate change. And I've been frustrated that I feel as though I'm preaching to the choir when it comes to climate as a journalist. And so I sought, as part of this fellowship, to reach out to some of the best communicators I know, artists. And so many people here helped me make tonight happen. Wish I could list all of you, but it's almost half the crowd. And what we came up with in a sort of experimental process of me figuring out what it was I wanted to do was to create an exhibition. And a jury would choose the pieces among invited artists. And the pieces, as you've seen, are from a variety of architects, designers, and artists from around the country and the world, as it were. And the winner is Sam Jury. Sam. A couple of quick words. Let me just thank those who helped make this project possible. Thank you so much. First off, is Phil still here? The Knight Science Journalism Fellowships is the main funder for this project. Artists in Context, Louise is here. Artists in Context also helped. Thank you to the Harvard Graduate School of Design, Massey Hall, the Urban Arts Institute, Museum of Science, this is here, and the Cambridge Science Festival, which this sits under. But the person I'm most gratified to introduce you to, and I'm so thankful I met her, is Sam Jury. Sam was the winner of the Perlmutter Prize last year, which, for those who don't know, is a major prize given to artists who are on the cusp of international greatness, or something very similar to that. It's given each year by the Rose Museum at Brandeis, and Sam's work deals with the psychological aspects of our relationship with the environment. And so I'm very lucky that she chose to make a proposal to this exhibition, and I'm so glad that she won. And I think we are now in the process of trying to make her proposal into reality. She's going to talk now about her idea. And so thank you so much, Sam, for your talent and your enthusiasm. And Sam Jury.
Yeah. Can everybody hear me okay? I don't want to have the microphone so that I might slip into karaoke. I just want to say how great it is to be here. I've had such a warm welcome, and I don't want to go home. I don't think it's any warmer in England actually than it is here. And I wanted to say thank you to Eli for arranging this initiative and for all the energy he's put into making my visit really enjoyable and very busy as well. Well, I've just been told, this is going to be a very brief talk, and I've just been told by good friends that a successful talk is 3 words. Keep it brief. I'm really keen to get to explaining what the proposal is, but I thought before I do that, it might be just helpful to give you a very brief overview of my practice. And I know I'm only really going to do the bare bones of this, so I'm really sort of welcoming questions at the end, so think of some things to ask me. So my background is in painting. I did my MFA in painting, and you'll probably notice some of the influence of painting in my work. But probably for the last 10 years, I've been working in photography and film, and primarily because I'm interested in how these medias, especially in the context of mass media, how they influence and shape our idea of our environment, our sense of realism, and by extension, ourselves. So I've been working in this medium for quite a long time now, about 10 years, and I guess my work is always a composite of different conventions, and my intent is usually to try and get some kind of psychological intending to the work, a more psychological reading rather than a very literal reading. And somebody once wrote about my work that I use visual lies to get to a psychological truth. And I think that that's a good quote, really, to sort of describe what I'm trying to do in the work. Probably for the last few years, I've been interested in exploring what I call suspended trauma. And what I mean by this is how dramatic or traumatic events are constantly replayed by the media and what effect that has on us. And by suspended, I mean that they're no longer attached to a place or a time, and yet we keep witnessing them. So I started making a body of film, and they'll be really great if a perfect example came up now, but I started making a body of work which I called disjecta membra, which means scattered pieces. I set up quite a complicated kind of, it's not the right one, sort of sets where there was disrupted matter, or there was water, and I was filming through these elements to get to a performative action through this disrupted matter. So there's a film that will come on here where there's a figure that's endlessly rolling around, and it never ends, and the matter never settles. And so I work with the elements a lot. I work, as I said, with water, I work with wind and disrupted matter, and who knows what else as this project develops. So, I mean, it might seem kind of strange, actually, having said all that when I first connected with Eli about doing this project for climate extremes, I thought, I'm not sure how my work... Am I going to scream now? I wasn't sure how my work might fit in that context, and obviously with the benefit of hindsight, and probably quite obvious to everybody here, and doing more research on what climate extremes are, I realised that some of this fixation with these hostile environments and this disruptive matter is a response to these very dire warnings that we get about climate change all the time. And I started thinking about that in relation to this idea of suspended trauma, that in some ways, by the very nature of climate change, it's in terms of a human lifespan, it's a slow, unfolding disaster, and yet we kind of live with the spectre of it. And so that's kind of where the work, I think, really fits into this thematic of extremes. I should mention at this point as well that I lived in the Middle East for a couple of years, and I think that's where this idea of oppressive and hostile environments came from. That I lived in a place where, if the power went off, everybody would frazzle and die probably very quickly. So that's not funny. So I started filming and doing work there of these little beleaguered figures in the desert, and the work has evolved from that. The proposal, I need a sip of water before I get to the proposal part. The proposal for this project is quite simple, I think. It's a large format video projection in a public space. And I think we can probably talk about what that means, public space, when we have questions. But it's a large format video projection in a public space. Under normal climate conditions, it will play a long looped film that will explore how we may adapt to climate change, which would include maybe some conditions, future conditions of climate change. So I'm thinking, how the infrastructure and the built environment might change, how our landscape might change, how our farming might change. And so that would be the kind of default, for want of a better word, film. In the event of a climate extreme in the area that the work is sited, it will be run by a software system that is connected to live climate data, and it will select from a bank of videos that are pre-made, and it will select a video that will correspond to that extreme psychologically. So actually, this is good timing. So something like this, the excesses of water. I just want to say about this work. This is work that I have done previously, and I've really just put together a little show reel to give you an idea of the kind of work I do. So that's the proposal. I just wanted to add something, and we've been having a lot of conversations with people about the idea of global versus local. And I've been getting the feeling that quite a lot of people think that it would be more powerful in a way to have something that shows an extreme happening somewhere where there's less resistance to an extreme. And obviously Massachusetts and the states have a much greater resistance to climate extremes. But I've been working with a psychologist at NTNU in Trondheim, and his name's Professor Christian Klockner. And he writes really interesting essays on how we deal with risk in relation to climate change. And through discussions, we pinpointed this notion of unrealistic optimism. And what that means is we're less likely to take action towards risk if we think it happens to other people, or we will downgrade it because we think it happens to other people. So maybe this idea of presenting another place actually feeds into that idea of unrealistic optimism. And so the challenge for me, and I think it will be a challenge, is to actually bring this idea of climate extremes to the doorstep of the viewer and to the individual. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of the proposal. I just wanted to add a last point, really. Another interesting part of psychology research says that we're more likely to understand risk and do something about risk if we're presented that risk in associative and effective language. And so for me, really, if I had to really sort of summarize this project, is to try and translate analytical and scientific data into more emotive and metaphorical language. Thank you.
I just want to make two very quick comments, and then we can go back to schmoozing. And the whole point of tonight is schmoozing. I do think a big part of my fellowship this year was about bringing scientists and artists together, because I think that conversation needs to happen more. The first is, we have almost all of the artists here who are participants in the exhibition. So could you please raise your hand if you're one of the artists? So Kalman is one of them. And there's Marcus and Evelyn. And there's Dan Borelli, who's the honorable mention. Dan's work is right over there. And there's Andrea, back there, yep. And Gina Jacobson, and Irina, and Brad Johnson back there. So yeah, actually every piece just turned out. Thank you all, the artists, for coming. I hope that you can see your pieces realized, and when the next few weeks are past, send me an email and let's talk. Maybe I can help you do that. And so if you or someone you know is interested in helping us make Sam's proposal, which is going to be this audacious year-long project. If someone you know wants to help us bring this to life, please let me know. We've started to have some meetings with people who know sites, people who have access to funders, and really positive energy, but we want to kind of create a coalition to make this happen. Anyway, thank you all for coming so much.
Oh, are we having questions?
Yes, I'm really sorry. I'm so sorry. If there are questions for Sam, please, now's the time.
Psychological, is your work meant to scare people into caring?
I think so. I mean, I think my work always sits on that kind of cusp of being unsettling, and I hope it's both unsettling and beautiful. So no, I'm not really interested in shocking people, because I don't think that works particularly. I'm almost interested in kind of getting under the door almost and having a kind of more emotional response rather than a terrifying one. So I don't imagine the work to be apocalyptic, and I hope that some of the work will be quite redemptive. I use that in my proposal text, that some of it will be positive, some of it will be, I think most of it will be very human. Are you scared by the work?
A little. Anyone else? But that's okay. Anyone else have questions?
Do we have everybody? Alright, so look here, and then I'll let everybody else take a picture, alright? Good night.